Hi, I'm Melania. It's a beautiful name, isn't it? And my dad named me after a beautiful and very brave woman, Melanie Knudsen. She's a wild animal tamer from Denmark. My father dreamed that I would become a circus tamer too. Most of my life was spent backstage at the circus, where I closely watched my father perform. My mother died when I was born, so my father brought me up by himself. He always told me a lot about the wilderness, about Africa, about how one day, when he earned lots and lots of money, he and I would go on a trip around the world. Dad was always a big dreamer, and I dreamed along with him until one day there was an accident. I'll tell you what happened in a minute, but in the meantime, please subscribe to the channel and click on the bell. There's lots of fun stuff ahead. So we're renovating our tiny apartment. It had been in disrepair for a long time, and Dad had been saving up for a few years to update our place. We bought a couple rolls of new wallpaper, ceiling paint, rolled up our sleeves, and got to work. We borrowed a stepladder from a neighbor to paint the ceiling, but it turned out that the stepladder was damaged. Because of that, my dad, standing on the very top, fell down from it and hurt his back. The ambulance, hospital, and a disappointing diagnosis. Dad will have to spend a month in bed without getting up. And then there's the treatment, and we need money for it. Otherwise, he will be disabled. In a week, I was 15. That's why my dad was such in a hurry with the repairs. He knew how I dreamed of inviting my friends over and having fun on my birthday. And now, because of my silly desires, he is confined to his bed. Thinking and swallowing my tears, I reached the circus. They promised me some kind of compensation for my father. On such a sunny day. Crying? The tall blonde guy looked at me with a sneer. It was only now that I realized I was standing on the sidewalk crying. The guy's name was Kurt, and he was a few years older than me. We were walking around the city, eating ice cream, and I got my mind off my problems a little bit. And 2 hours later, Kurt looked at his phone and apologized, saying he had things to do. We exchanged phone numbers, and Kurt disappeared around the corner in a minute. The money I was given at the circus was barely enough to pay my hospital bill. The doctor said that without the money, he would have to discharge my dad next week, but he needs rehabilitation. The circus hinted to me that they wouldn't wait long. If Daddy doesn't get better in the next few weeks, they'll find another trainer. Suddenly, the phone vibrated. Kurt was asking how I was doing. The first time we met, I told him everything, and he was genuinely worried about me. He begged me to come to the same place where we'd met. He handed me an envelope with a lot of money in it. I can't take it, Kurt. You and I barely know each other, and I can't give it back. But Kurt shook his head in a negative way. Your father needs help right now. It's a present, Melania. Take it. In an outburst of gratitude, I hugged Kurt. There are still good people on this planet after all. And I ran as fast as I could to the hospital to pay for the treatment. The days flew by. I visited my father every day and secretly rejoiced to see that little by little he was recovering. After about 2 weeks, he started to get up. The doctor discharged him, and Dad promised to follow all the prescriptions at home. We started walking around the city with him little by little. He got tired quickly, so I was always there to help. Dad was very bored with his work and begged me to walk to the circus. After a couple of streetcars stops, we got off the same sidewalk where we had once met, Kurt, and slowly walked to the circus. We hadn't seen each other since all my time belonged to Dad. There was a commotion outside the circus. There were big trucks standing around, with empty cages next to them. Dad, seeing that, got nervous. I didn't understand what was going on here myself. I decided to go inside to find out what was going on. And in the doorway, I ran into Kurt.
What are you doing here?
I felt a little uncomfortable. While Kurt was looking for the right words, someone from inside called out, "Mr. Knudsen, everything is ready!" And Kurt jerked. It was like I was struck by lightning. Your last name is Knudsen? Are you related to Melanie Knudsen? Kurt got nervous.
It's complicated, Melania. I'm taking all the animals away. The circus can no longer support them.
You paid me off. You decided to stick me that lousy money so you wouldn't feel bad about it. Kurt pointed his eyes at my dad, who was sitting on a bench nearby.
At least your dad's walking. You saved him.
And now you're killing him. Without the circus and the animals, he can't live. And I naively believed you.
Kurt made a warning hand gesture. Melania, as soon as Daddy can perform, we'll be glad to have him in our circus. Hopefully, until then you'll stop being mad at me and understand why I did what I did.
A couple of minutes later, my dad and I were sitting on the bench watching the trucks pull away from the circus. They had a long journey to Denmark. A year had passed, and now my dad and I are on the train. He's made a full recovery. For the first couple of months, I was terribly angry with Kurt, but in my heart, I was grateful to him. He saved my father. And now we're going to Denmark. Kurt called 2 weeks ago and invited us. Daddy will have a job again. I will be able to resume school. I'll also get to meet his mother, my namesake Melania Knudsen. She can't wait to see the same girl her son Kurt keeps telling her about. It wasn't supposed to end like this. I didn't want to. But it's too late now. Hear me out, and don't make the same mistakes I did. My name is Ariana Smith. I'm 17, and I come from a very wealthy family. My parents worked very hard to make their dreams come true. Or most of them. They couldn't have children. Then who am I, you ask? I was taken as a baby from an orphanage, surrounded by affection and care. My parents never hid the fact from me that I was not their own daughter. And everyone knows that, even Matt. That's my boyfriend. We've been together for a year now, and we're going to go to the same university together after graduation, so we won't break up. One day at recess, a girl ran up to me like 2 peas in a pod, and from that day, my life changed. I'll tell you why in a minute. But now, please subscribe to the channel and click on the bell so you don't miss any new stories. Emma is how she introduced herself, and we were a lot alike. She was very loud, and she wouldn't stop talking. She said she saw a picture of me on the internet one day, and she showed it to my parents. And they admitted that Emma has a twin sister. That is me. But I left in an orphanage as a baby because they couldn't financially cope with raising 2 daughters. Lucky you, sister. You were adopted by such rich people. Compared to you, I live in a slum. Emma gestured with her hands. I wanted to get to know her better. So I invited Emma home for dinner. Emma whistled loudly when she saw my mansion, and she didn't hesitate to go inside. She threw herself around my mother's neck, then my father's, like they'd known each other for 1,000 years. It was obvious that Emma had a bad upbringing. She kept her mouth shut all through dinner. Emma was interested in everything, how many servants we had at home. And then Matt came to pick me up in the evening. He hugged me and kissed me gently. And I noticed how Emma turned pale and clenched her teeth when she saw us. I was embarrassed. So I invited Emma to come with us to the new nightclub. Oh, she acted awful. She was laughing out loud and making dirty jokes, which ruined the mood of me and Matt. And then she asked me to spend the night, saying it was too late and it was a long drive home. I said yes, but I decided to have a serious talk with Emma the next day about her behavior. In the morning, my mother reprimanded me. Daughter, I understand that Emma is your sister, and you want to get to know her. But she's being very defiant. She's already been rude to the servants, bossing them around. When I saw Emma, I was shocked. She let her hair down, put on my robe, and now we were like 2 peas in a pod. Do your parents know where you are, Emma? I decided to start from afar. They're used to me not sleeping at home, sister. And you have such a huge mansion. I would stay here. That girl has some nerve. I was getting all hot and bothered by a text message on my phone, and I was ready to give her a good going over. It was Matt. He sent me a picture. It showed 2 tickets to Paris, an evening flight, and the caption, "Let's fly to Paris for a few days, relax a little." I sent him a kiss in return and jumped for joy. Fly out in a couple of hours. Need to get things together and clean up. While I was running from the closet to the suitcase and back, dropping off things for the trip, the house got quiet. My parents had left for work, and the servants, since it was Friday, had a shortened workday. I was running myself a hot bubble bath when suddenly Emma appeared on the doorstep. I didn't say anything about going to Paris, but I had to explain the packed suitcase in my room. I'm going on a business trip with my dad. He's opening a new branch, and he wants to show me around. Emma studied me with a look. Then she nodded slowly. Well then, I'll be going home. Will you call me when you get back? Of course I will. And I heard the sound of footsteps moving away. Whew, I'm out. But not 2 minutes later, Emma walked back into the bathroom and handed me a glass of orange juice. I grabbed the glass, and then I grabbed it and went back to the bathroom. I grabbed the glass and drank it in a gulp. The juice was so sweet. I suddenly felt terribly tired. My eyes were leaden. Everything was a blur, and someone was tugging on my shoulder. Mama, I'm late, Mom! I jumped up. The cab? Matt? Didn't he call? My mom took a step back, staring at me in surprise. Ariana, is that you? Who else would it be, Mom? Half an hour ago, I thought for sure you'd gotten in the cab and rushed to the airport. What? It was all a blur from then on. Mom and I were rushing to the airport. Check-in was over 10 minutes ago. I didn't make it. Through my tears, I saw the plane take off. I was supposed to be on that plane. But it was Emma instead. With Matt, I was so bitter. She must have read the message on my phone and figured it out. We had the same fingerprints, so she had no problem unlocking it. There was no connection. Now 10 hours on the plane, Matt would be hugging and kissing Emma. Thinking it was me, I sank to the floor and cried bitterly. My mom could barely talk me into going home. I was up all night. I paced the room. It was all my fault. I trusted that imposter, and she used me. She put sleeping pills in my juice so she could fly away from me. And this morning, I got a message from Matt on Instagram. I knew right away that Emma was flying instead of you. I exposed her on that plane, and she started getting hysterical. I'm on the first flight back. I miss you. It was like a stone had been lifted from his soul. He knew, he felt, it wasn't me. Everything's gonna be all right now, and I never want to see that girl again. It's a good thing we were separated when we were kids. She and I don't look anything alike, even though we're twins. Do you have a twin brother or sister? Do you have a good relationship? Write to me. I'm very interested.
I am Miranda Robbins. I betrayed someone close to me, and now he's in a mental institution. A month ago, I was a rich, carefree girl. My dad has a huge hotel business, and I'm graduating in a month. Dad was sure I'd soon be at the helm of his multi-million-dollar empire, and everyone was happy about it, except for the quiet, inconspicuous girl who also bore our big name of Robbins. Mimi was my sister. She was a year older than me, but we were in the same class, for I was a very bright girl. We didn't really get along with Mimi because she was jealous of my parents, and after my father announced that I was going to take over the business, our relationship totally soured. Oh, the doorbell! Must be Dylan. Meet the inveterate Casanova who's been messing around with girls left and right. For convenience, he called each one babe, and miraculously, no one resented him. A few times he came on to me, but I ignored all his signs of attention. Eventually, Dylan got sick of it, and one day after class, he drove his red Mustang up to block my path.
Look, why are you freezing me out, baby?
Go ahead, I'm in a hurry. But Dylan jumped out of the car and came right up to me. Yeah, he was a handsome guy. You can't argue with that.
What do I have to do to get you to go out with me?
Dylan practically burned my face with his breath. I like the classics, Dylan. Flowers, dinner by candlelight, a walk through the evening city. Surprise me. Can you do that? Dylan clearly wasn't expecting that answer. And I, walking away, followed behind through, and you have to come home for me. And there Dylan was, standing on the doorstep. Now I realize that this act was a trigger for terrible things. I'll tell you everything. But in the meantime, subscribe to the channel and click on the bell. Thank you. The date was a success. We sat in a cozy restaurant on the roof of a skyscraper. Then Dylan took me for an evening boat ride where we kissed under the moonlight. Happy, though a little confused, Dylan brought me home late at night. It was dark everywhere, but for a moment, I thought I saw a shadow in the second-floor window. Dylan's gentle kiss distracted me. We started dating. The school was in shock. The most inveterate womanizer turned into the perfect romantic. Dylan kept saying that I was the first girl who'd ever stood up to him. The more I ignored him, the more the guy fell in love. And then tomorrow is prom. Dylan and I had arranged for him to pick me up at 6. The prom was at 7, so we'd still have time to take pictures.
But it's 6:15 and Dylan's not here. I dialed the machine. Strange. Normally, if Dylan is running late, he always lets me know. And then I got a message on my phone from Dylan.
If it's important to you, the Ritz Hotel, room 13.
And a picture of a boutonniere. Dylan had specially ordered flowers for her in the tone of my dress, so I immediately recognized it. What kind of tricks are those? Why a hotel? We're going to be late for prom. I called him up, but no luck. That's when I got mad. I'm not gonna let anyone lead me around by the nose. Okay, Dylan, what's the big joke? I jerked open door number 13. Quiet. Dylan? Sit down, sister. Mimi was standing on the threshold of the bathroom, looking at me coldly. I felt bad. Mimi didn't look good, to say the least. Sunken cheeks, circles under her eyes. Where's Dylan? What did you do to him? He betrayed me. Mimi took a step in my direction. I thought you'd be just like him. Just another babe on his list. But no, he's in love with the perfect Miranda. She made me shake. And when I saw him kiss you tenderly goodbye after our first date, I knew you both betrayed me. So it was you. I didn't think anyone was watching from the window at the time. Where is Dylan? You answer for hurting me, Dylan. And Mimi pointed at the bathroom with her eyes. He's waiting impatiently for you. What have you done to him? I whispered through my lips. Suddenly, I heard a loud stomping of feet in the hallway behind me. A minute later, my dad came rushing into the room, followed by several guards.
Are you okay?
Daddy rushed over to me. The guards immediately surrounded Mimi. Dylan, she did something to him. He's in the bathroom, I cried. Luckily, Dylan was sleeping peacefully in the bathroom. Mimi had drugged him. Wiping away my tears, my dad told me that Mimi was not well. She had been under the care of doctors for a long time, and so far, everything was within normal limits. The medication was helping her, but apparently my affair with Dylan was the trigger, and she went off the rails. It was lucky that the hotel where Dylan and I were trapped belonged to my father, and the receptionist immediately reported seeing both Mr. Robbins' daughter in the hotel lobby. Now Mimi is in a mental hospital. I visit her, but under strong tranquilizers, she sleeps all the time. It turned out that Dylan had actually gone out with Mimi once before my relationship with him, but somehow it didn't work out right away. I'm not offended by him. I'm more mad at myself. How could I have not noticed that there was something wrong with my sister? How could I have been so blind? I feel terribly guilty. Do you have any sisters or brothers? Do you have a good relationship? Write to me. I'm very interested. Hi, my name is Kate. And I'm a millionaire. I'm the owner of a big factory that makes all sorts of little things for the home and family. And I also own a chain of stores and restaurants. I own a yacht, 3 fancy mansions, and a fleet of cars. And I'm only 18. And if you think my rich parents helped me with everything, you're wrong. Everything I have, I got on my own. In a minute, I will reveal my secret. How to become rich and independent. And you, please subscribe to my channel and put a bell. Thank you. So, I was born into a poor family and have been lacking something my whole life. While my classmates were bragging about fancy clothes and going to parties, I was wearing my older sister's old worn-out jeans and skimping on lunches. I wanted to live as cool as the other girls. Go shopping, eat out at nice places, or spend movie nights. But my family couldn't even afford short vacations. And I only went to the movies once, when I saved for food for 2 weeks. As soon as I grew up, I realized that I urgently needed to find a job. I went for a job interview to become a salesperson in a clothing store. But because of my shabby appearance, I was rejected. They said I would scare away all the customers. I couldn't become a waitress for the same reason. My sneakers were torn, and the manager told me to come back after I cleaned up and bought new clothes. I would have loved to, but how could I do that without money? Fortunately, I did find a job. It was a maid in a fancy hotel. And most importantly, they gave me a new uniform and special shoes. I cleaned, folded, and vacuumed the rooms, corridors, and halls of the hotel. But it didn't take me long to get excited about my new uniform, because there were a lot of gorgeous people in expensive clothes, and I was terribly jealous of them. I desperately wanted to be in their shoes. Then I decided to start listening to what rich clients were saying. I listened to the conversations at the buffets, in the restaurant, and the hotel conference room. You wouldn't believe how much interesting things rich people talk about. They discuss stocks, exchanges, accounts. I decided to listen to it all carefully and not only memorize, but also write it down. Within a few months, my notebook was full of notes with such information, which in itself is worth a lot of money. I also started making acquaintances. You'll probably laugh in my face. Who's going to talk to a regular cleaning lady? But I studied each of them, learned about their preferences for food and drink, and these subtleties helped me start a conversation. This way, I was gathering a real base of rich and influential people. I liked that job. I could be invisible and still know everything about everybody. The only thing that frustrated me was that, at work, we were given terrible dusting and cleaning clothes. They were of very low quality, and I sometimes had to scrub a single spot off the carpet for an hour, and that kept me from hearing the information I needed when I wanted it. To save time, I decided to do something different. When I got home, I set about redoing the napkins. My grandmother once told me how to clean my house quickly and efficiently, and I remembered her telling me to take a thin cloth, soak it in cleaning ingredients, and then combine it with a tough cloth napkin. I sewed such a cloth, and it worked. With these clothes, the dust washed off much faster, and I had time to eavesdrop on conversations where and when I wanted to. One day, another maid saw my napkins. She liked them and bought some from me. A couple of days later, maids from the other floors of the hotel came running in with the same request. That's when I realized that demand creates supply. I made thousands of these napkins, dressed up nicely, and approached the hotel manager. I already knew very well how to communicate about business. I was able to prove to the manager why the hotel should buy several hundreds of these napkins from me. And everything spun. I quit my job as a maid and started calling all the hotels, restaurants, and cleaning services offering my product. My business went up, and I could no longer manage to sew the napkins. I hired a seamstress, and since she worked quickly, we started making not only napkins, but other home cleaning supplies as well. I started selling them. The number of orders was growing. And I pulled out my notebook with the notes I had collected while eavesdropping on conversations between rich people in the hotel. Using these contacts and information, I knew what to do next. And I started signing contracts to work with people I had been taking out the garbage for. Now I am a millionaire, and I have achieved everything on my own. My main secret is to be attentive and go after my goal no matter what. Hi everyone, I'm Nicole, and I hate my looks. I even hung up all the mirrors in the house. Why? I'll tell you my secret, and please subscribe to the channel and click on the bell. Thank you. I'm just a simple girl from an ordinary family, and my appearance is completely inconspicuous. No one ever pays attention to me. Because of that, I never had any friends. I was sure that the problem was that I was not pretty and bright enough. It was especially felt when I went to social networks for the 100th time in a day and watched the storyisms of mind-blowing Regina. This is a very popular movie star and singer. She's practically the same age as me, but insanely cool. There are millions of people watching her life on social media. Every picture of her gets thousands of likes in a minute. And Regina has lots of friends all over the world. All the girls in class want to be like her, and so do I. But when I looked in the mirror, I knew I wasn't as good as Regina. My nose, lips, eyes, even hair. Everything was not what I wanted, and it prevented me to be happy. I decided that no matter what happened, I had to change my appearance and become as beautiful as she, Regina. I'm going to be just like her, and then everything will change. I would become visible and wanted by everyone. For months, I've been trying to figure out how to do that. My family couldn't afford to pay for plastic surgery for me, so I decided to cheat. My parents had been saving for my education since I was born. They opened a separate bank account for this. And then in a week, I would turn 18, and that account would be open to me. It was the early morning of my birthday, and I ran to the bank. And an hour later, with a big wad of money in my backpack, I was already sitting in a plastic surgery clinic. At the doctor's appointment, I handed him a picture of Regina. "I want to look like that, exactly," I mocked. The doctor looked at me carefully, then called someone and, smiling tense, asked to wait in the hallway while he prepared all the materials for my future operations. Then we would discuss everything and set a date for my first surgery. I was so happy. I sat in the corridor in the first chair I saw and waited. Across from me sat a girl with dark glasses. It was obvious that she was uncomfortable, and she tried to be as inconspicuous as possible. Inside, I had a vague feeling that I knew her. That hair, the contour of her lips. It couldn't be! Regina? I jumped out of my chair. Yes, it was her! My idol! Regina took off her glasses upon realizing she'd been compromised. "Hi," she whispered. "I'm Nicole, and I came here to be as beautiful as you are, and it'll bring me luck," I yelled. Suddenly, I saw tears in Regina's eyes. She waved her hands in the air. "Don't do this! Do not become a copy of me! It's horrible!" Her words shocked me. The next thing Regina told me was that those beautiful eyes, the snub nose, the pouty lips, all of it was done at the clinic. Producers made her change her appearance so that, at first, even her mother did not recognize Regina. Before the operations, she had an ordinary appearance, but for the stage was not enough. But I lost myself, Nicole. I hate the way I look in the mirror. It's not me. It's just an image, a picture, but it's not me. I felt sorry for Regina. There was this poor girl sitting in front of me, her life taken away from her. Her popularity had ruined her. And she had come to the clinic to regain her inconspicuous appearance, she told me. After a couple of minutes, the doctor came out. He nodded at me questioningly.
Well, what?
I hid the photo of Regina, thanked him, and left. As I walked down the street, I felt strange. I felt sad and light at the same time. The doctor must have sent me into the hallway on purpose to hear Regina's story. That's what I thought as I sat to the table at home. I quietly returned the entire amount to the bank account. I decided that a good education could do more for me than a pouty lip and an upturned nose. I would learn to love myself. Yes, I'm no beauty queen, but the right makeup and hair can work wonders. I don't want to have to run to clinics like Regina to get my inconspicuous looks back. Oh, the doorbell rings. Must be the guests. I'm 18 today, after all. I hope you liked my story. One last thing. Value your individuality. Don't try to be a copy of someone else, but become the best version of yourself.
Melissa. Pretty name, isn't it? Beautiful name for a beautiful girl. That's what my mom and dad always said before that terrible incident. What happened to me? In a minute. And now, I ask you to subscribe to the channel and do not forget to click on the bell. Thank you. So, we lived on a small farm, away from the city, in the fresh air. It was a luxurious childhood. And my dad bought me a bike. And at the age of 5, I traveled all around the neighborhood. But one day at high speed, I ran into a sharp stone. Unable to hold the steering wheel, I flew somersault through it and crashed face first into a large boulder in the road. I lost consciousness from the impact. I woke up in the hospital. Tearful parents bent over me. Turned out that due to a powerful blow to the jaw, almost all of my teeth fell out. And the doctor shocked me with the diagnosis. Most of the teeth will not grow or will be terribly crooked. Everything could be corrected surgically, but the parents could not afford it. A year later, we moved to the city. I went to school, and the horror began. My classmates teased me, called me nibbler, monster. I constantly tightly clenched my jaw so that no one would see this deformity. It got worse in middle school. The girls started putting on makeup, They wanted to look attractive, and I just sat at the back of the desk, not daring to raise my hand, a monster in its cave. Sometimes classmates surrounded me in a tight ring and began to tickle me and make me laugh, especially Phoebe, our class queen. She screamed, "Open your mouth, monster! Open your mouth! You are a monster! Stop it!" Suddenly, a guy appeared in front of me, who looked at Phoebe with contempt. She opened her mouth in surprise and smiled tightly. "Connor, right? Are you the first day today? Better don't get carried away." But Connor walked close to Phoebe and whispered, "Leave her alone." And always bold and daring Phoebe suddenly turned pale and ran out of the classroom. So I got a friend. Connor was not afraid of anyone. He only talked with those he wanted to. A cheerful, groovy, smart guy who was now always there. At first, I was insanely embarrassed and simply kept silent or nodded in response, just so that Connor would not see my ugly, crooked teeth. But he told me so many funny stories all the time, on the way home, on a walk in the park, or at recess, that it was impossible not to laugh. I was so carried away by Connor that I did not notice the main thing. Phoebe had a crush on him. Seeing us together, she boiled with anger, ready to tear me apart and knock out the remnants of my crooked teeth. One day after school, Connor had baseball practice. I used to stay and watch him at the stadium, but on this day, I came running when the team was already changing clothes and accidentally caught Phoebe, who was trampling in the corridor, obviously waiting for someone. "Connor, hi! Listen, I have 2 invitations here for the opening of a new summer disco. Come with me." Phoebe ran after Connor like a dog, and Connor walked slowly down the corridor, as if he did not hear her barking. "Connor, stop ignoring me!" Phoebe blocked his path. "Why are you hanging out with her? It's just ridiculous! Beauty and the Beast!" Phoebe laughed out loud. A crowd of onlookers began to gather around. Connor stopped abruptly. "Phoebe, as far as I understand, disabled people and freaks are not your profile, right?" Phoebe bit her lip. "Everyone laughs at her, Connor. You alone, like a valiant knight, are busy with her." "I'm not talking about her, Phoebe." Connor's eyes lit up with a daring gleam. And suddenly, he sharply pulled up the long sleeve of the jacket, followed by a click. And in Connor's left hand was his right arm almost to the elbow. He sneered at the shocked Phoebe. A surprised whisper went through the crowd. Phoebe lowered her head and ran away. Connor and I made eye contact. The bell rang. Everyone ran to class, and we stood and looked at each other. A couple of years ago, an accident at my father's sawmill. Connor pointed to the prostheses with his eyes. With quick movements, he fastened it back on. Now I understand why the guy always wore long sleeves. Why didn't you tell? I don't think it's anything special. I learned to live with it. And I want you to stop being ashamed of yourself too. Nobody has the right to mock you, Melissa. But for this, you must be confident in yourself. You are a smart, interesting girl. The moment will come, you will save up money, you will have an operation, and you will become almost perfect. But no need to hide from everyone in a mink. Connor took my hand, and I tried to hide my tears from him, tears of gratitude. A year has passed since then. Now I am sitting in the plastic surgery clinic and waiting for my turn. I was lucky, thanks to one charitable foundation that helps gifted children. Today, I will have an operation to correct my terrible teeth, and I am happy. And my boyfriend Connor is sitting next to me, and he holds my hand so tightly that I am sure that I will succeed. And I wish you be confident in yourself no matter what.